Welcome back to English Desk with Sonali. Today we are going to study a poem. Some poems don't just tell a story, they make us question the way we see the world. Imagine a tiny bird in a beautiful golden cage. It has everything it needs: food, water, a safe and comfortable home. But there is one thing it doesn't have. Yes, freedom to fly. This image brings us very close to Marge Piercy's poem, The Work of Artifice. At first glance, it looks like an act of love, protection. But is it really care? Or is it control? In today's session, we will discover how Marge Piercy uses simple language, powerful symbols, and gentle irony to reveal a profound truth. We will see how people can be shaped according to someone else's expectations, how control is often disguised as protection, and how freedom is quietly taken away in the name of safety. By the end of this lesson, you will understand poem's central idea, its symbolism, poetic devices, and how it comments on control, separation, and gender inequality in a remarkably powerful way. Now about poet. Marge Piercy is a renowned American poet, novelist, and social activist. She grew in a working class family in Detroit and experienced many social and economic challenges herself. She is well known for writing social justice, feminism, equality, nature, and struggles of ordinary people. She didn't write only from imagination or theory. These real life experiences made her writing powerful, realistic, and deeply meaningful. Do you know Marge Piercy wrote three of her famous novels, Woman on the Edge of Time, He, She, and It, and Gone to Soldiers, using the same second-hand typewriter that she bought in 1968? She believed that good writing comes from discipline rather than inspiration alone. Even before she became a well known author, she would wake up early in the morning, write for several hours. This dedication is reflected in her poem, The Work of Artifice. Through the simple image of bonsai tree, she encourages us to question social expectations, control, and the way society often limits human potential while making those limitations appear natural. Now let's see the poem line by line. A work of artifice. A work of artifice means something carefully and cleverly made in an artificial way. The appropriateness of title we will discuss after we finish the poem. Let's start with the first stanza. The bonsai tree in the attractive pot could have grown 80 feet tall on the side of a mountain till split by lightning. So, poet is beginning the poem by showing the natural potential of the bonsai tree. Bonsai tree has natural capacity to grow tall and strong. This shows its original power and the potential. And the word attractive, it shows that the setting is very beautiful, but beauty hides restriction. Now, if we see the third line, could have grown shows the contrast between tree's potential and the reality. What is tree's potential? That if the tree is left alone to grow in the nature, to grow on the side of a mountain, then it can grow till 80 feet tall. It can grow wild. It can grow very strong. But what is the reality? That it is kept in the attractive pot. Attractive pot may appear very beautiful, but the tree's growth is stunted there. It limits the tree's roots and its growth. So poet says that sometimes the things appear very beautiful, but their freedom might have been restricted. So poet wants to emphasize on the point that जो beautiful होता है अंदर से वो restricted भी हो सकता है. If we see the last line of the stanza, till split by lightning, means if the tree is left alone to grow on the side of mountain or in the nature, then it will grow tall, it will grow strong, but at the same time it will be ready to face the dangers of life like storm, lightning. So poets suggest that it is better to have the life with danger, with freedom, than the life without freedom but a safe life. So poet is underlining the fact that जो life है with freedom and with risk is much more better, is much more meaningful than the life which has restrictions or which is limited one. Now, let's see the next stanza. This is the tree, bonsai tree, which has the capacity to grow 80 feet tall. And our next stanza starts with the word but. But a gardener carefully pruned it. It is 9 inches high every day as he whittles back the branches. The word but is very important. Before I explain this word, let me ask you one question. What would you prefer? The life with restrictions but a safety life, or life with freedom with risk? Let me know in the comment section. Now coming on to our stanza, second stanza, it starts with the word but, and but shows the turning point. Because in the previous stanza we have seen that bonsai tree has the capacity to grow till 80 feet tall. Now this but shows the turning point that tree's growth is stopped by a gardener. How he stops? He carefully pruned it, he carefully cuts off the branches for the better shape. And the word carefully is also very important because it shows the control. So control always is harsh, but sometimes it may appear gentle. So here gardener carefully pruned it. Here control appears very gentle, very loving, very protective, even though it is damaging, but appears very loving and gentle. And the result of this careful pruning is that tree's growth is stunted to 9 inches. It is just the fraction of its natural growth. Then you can imagine that how severe this restriction is. And this simple line, this small line shows the shocking reality, shocking reduction every day as he whittles back the branches. And this act of pruning is not one time act, it is the continuous happenings, it is continuous process, and it is everyday act. Whittles back, whittles also means the same thing, that is cutting off, cutting little by little but every day, and that this gardener cuts the tree every day. Now, I want to ask you, do you think that this poem is just about the bonsai tree? Keep that thought in mind. We will discover with our reading in third and fourth stanza that if this bonsai tree, little tiny bonsai tree, represents something much bigger. Now, I want to tell you one thing before we start the third stanza, that many critics interpret bonsai tree as it symbolizes the or it represents women. Normally this poem is interpreted as a feminist poem, that just like the bonsai trees is natural potential is restricted, just like that the natural potential of women is restricted by the society. And but in the broad sense you can interpret this poem as any person whose natural growth is limited or restricted. This poem is applicable to that person. So let's start with the third stanza. The gardener croons, "It is your nature to be small and cozy, domestic and weak. How lucky little tree to have a pot to grow in." So the Gardener croons. Croons means talking softly, in a very careful way, speaking or singing in gentle murmuring manner. So gardener is not harsh, but it is keeping the growth of bonsai tree restricted. That's not harsh. He is very gentle. He's very loving. He croons. He speaks very softly, and it tells the tree that it is your nature. It is natural for you that you are small, you're cozy, you're domestic and weak. It is your nature being weak. It is your nature that you are in the pot. So, how lucky little tree to have a pot to grow in. And gardener also says that he calls the tree as a lucky tree, that it doesn't have to face the danger like lightning. It has the pot to grow in. So it is the tree is very lucky. Actually, here the irony is shown, and irony is very heavy. Gardner speaks very softly. He sounds very affectionate, very loving, but he is actually damaging the tree. Now, look at the line domestic and weak. Normally, these words are traditionally used in order to show the expectations which are imposed on women. Women are expected to be domestic. They are expected to remain at home. They are expected to be delicate, but not powerful. So, from this stanza, we come to know that this poem is not just about the bonsai tree. Bonsai tree is not just a tree, but it is a symbol. Now, our last stanza, with living creatures, one must begin very early to dwarf their growth. The bound feet, the crippled brain, the hair in the collars, the hands you love to touch. With the beginning of the last stanza, we come to know that poet is not talking anymore about bonsai tree. The poem shifts from bonsai tree to the living creatures. So this shift is very noticeable, and so we come to know that this poem is not about the bonsai tree. Bonsai tree is used just as a symbol. Now let's break it down. With living creatures, one must begin very early to dwarf their growth. So in society, if society wants to put the restrictions or to stop the natural potential of any person, and it must start from the childhood itself to dwarf their growth, means to restrict the growth, to restrict the growth, like in the sense physical growth, mental growth, spiritual growth, emotional growth. So society starts putting restrictions on people from the childhood, especially on women. So women have to face the restrictions of the society right from the childhood. The bound feet, the crippled brain, the hair in collars, the hands you love to touch. Then how the restrictions are put on women. Let's see that. Bound feet. Bound feet means the feet binding practice. This was the traditional practice which prevailed in China, and it means that it started early in the 10th century and lasted till early 20th century. So that time, women's young girls' feet were tied tightly with the cloth, and in order to restrict the growth of feet naturally. It resulted into the small feet, but at the same time, some diseases or disability. Then crippled brain. Crippled doesn't mean disabled brain, but it means limiting someone's mind by not allowing education, not allowing women to express their ideas, to express their opinion. In this sense, crippled brain or hair in collars. Hair in collars, actually it shows the beauty standards that women are forced by society to spend their most of the time in their appearance, or in developing their appearance, or concentrating on their appearance. So appearance for women, appearance or beauty was is considered very important. maybe not right now, the situation might have changed, but still women are told to focus on their beauty, on their appearance. Means actually, the poet is not against the colors, to use color, but she questions that society who teaches women to spend their most of the time in developing or in concentrating their external appearance rather than developing their own potential. The hands you love to touch. This line shows how women are valued for their beauty, for their softness, for their delicacy, and for pleasing others. It reveals that the admiration hides the control and the restriction. These are specific examples of how women are controlled. Bound feet, physical restriction, food binding practice, crippled brain, denial of education and independent thought, hair in colors, beauty standards that distract from freedom, hands you love to touch, softness and gentleness valued over strength, affection used to justify control. The poet reminds us that every human being has the potential to grow like a mighty tree. But when society starts putting restriction in the name of protection, love, safety, then we start believing that these restrictions, these limitations are natural. They are our good fortune. So like in third stanza, the gardener says the tree that it is your nature to be small and cozy. Gardner makes the tree believe that it is natural for the tree being small and cozy, domestic and weak. So, through the image of the bonsai tree, Marge Piercy urges us to question every force that prevents us from becoming who we really are. Now let's see the theme and the poetic devices used in this poem. Now let's explore the main themes in this poem. First one, control and separation. The central theme of the work of artifice is control. Through the image of a bonsai tree, Marge Piercy shows how people can deliberately restrict another person's natural growth and potential. The gardener constantly prunes the tree until it remains only 9 inches tall. Although the tree could have grown into a mighty 80-foot tree, it is never allowed to do so. The poet suggests that society often controls people so gradually and gently that they eventually accept their limitations as natural. This control may appear harmless, but it prevents individuals from becoming what they are truly capable of being. Hidden operation. One of the most striking ideas in the poem is that operation can be subtle rather than obvious. The gardener never shouts or threatens the tree. Instead, he speaks softly, praises its small size, and convinces it that it is lucky. This reflects the way societies often justify restrictions by presenting them as protection. POC suggests that the most effective form of control is the one that makes people believe they are fortunate to be controlled. Social conditioning. The poem also explores how society shapes people's beliefs from an early age. The gardener repeatedly tells the bonsai tree that it is its nature to be small and cozy. Similarly, society often teaches people from childhood to accept certain roles, behaviors, expectations without questioning them. Over time, these repeated messages become internalized and individuals begin to believe that their limitations are natural rather than imposed. The poem encourages reader to question these social expectations instead of accepting them blindly. Next theme is freedom and human potential, loss of freedom. The bonsai tree could have lived freely on the side of a mountain facing storms, wind, and even lightning. Instead, it is confined to a small pot where every aspect of its growth is controlled. Through this contrast, Piercy suggests that life of freedom, even with difficulties and risk, is more meaningful than a life of comfort without independence. True growth is possible only when individuals are free to make their own choices. Human potential. The bonsai tree represents the immense potential that exists within every human being. Left in its natural environment, the tree could have become tall, strong, and majestic. However, because of constant pruning, it never reaches to its full potential. The poem reminds readers that every individual has unique abilities and talents, but these can only flourish when they are given freedom, encouragement, and equal opportunities. Artificial limitations prevent people from becoming the best versions of themselves. Next theme is feminism and patriarchy. The poem is widely interpreted as a feminist poem. The bonsai tree symbolizes women whose talents, dreams, and independence have been limited by a patriarchal society. Just as a gardener repeatedly prunes the tree, society often teaches women to remain small, domestic, and weak. These qualities are presented as natural even though they are actually created through years of social conditioning. Piercy criticizes the way patriarchal system restricts women's opportunities while convincing them that such limitations are for their own good. Work of Artifice is much more than a poem about a bonsai tree. Through this simple yet powerful symbol, Marge Piercy explores themes of control, freedom, patriarchy, social conditioning, hidden oppression, and human potential. The poem urges readers to question the beliefs and restrictions imposed by society and reminds us that true growth is possible only when individuals are free to develop according to their own abilities rather than someone else's expectations. Now let's explore the poetic devices. One reason this poem is so powerful is that Marge Piercy doesn't use difficult vocabulary. Instead, she uses simple literary devices that carry deep meaning. First is extended metaphor. The central poetic device in the poem is extended metaphor. Piercy compares a woman's condition in a society to a bonsai tree that is carefully trimmed and restricted by a gardener. Bonsai tree represents women. The gardener represents patriarchal society or those in power. The pot symbolizes restriction and confinement. The process of trimming and limiting growth symbolizes how society controls a woman's freedom, potential, and identity. This metaphor continues throughout the poem, which is why it is called extended metaphor. Next is symbolism. Piercy uses strong symbols to communicate deeper meaning. Bonsai tree symbolizes the women whose growth is limited by social expectations. Gardener symbolizes main authority or patriarchal power that shapes and controls women's lives. Pot symbolizes a limited domestic or social space assigned to women. Tree symbolizes natural strength and potential. Through symbolism, the poet shows that women are naturally capable of growing fully, but society cuts them down. Now, next poetic device is imagery. The poet creates vivid mental pictures. So, visual imagery is used in this poem. Visual imagery means the description which stimulates our sense of sight. So, the examples of imagery are attractive in a pot, 9 inches high, by the side of a mountain, or others are like the gardener carefully pruned it. So, these are the examples of visual imagery. These expressions help readers to imagine a small shaped bonsai tree. Visual image of beautiful but restricted tree helps us understand poem's message about controlled beauty and suppressed freedom. The poet creates visual imagery by describing the attractive pot, the mountain, the bonsai tree, and gardeners pruning it every day. Now, next poetic device is irony. Irony is very important in the poem. Bonsai is praised for being beautiful and delicate and well shaped. But that beauty exists only because it has been stunted or damaged. This is ironic because something admired as an art form is actually the result of restriction and violence against natural growth. So, what looks graceful is actually tragic. Next figure of speech is personification. The tree is presented almost like a human being. It is described as a living creature whose shape and development are controlled. This personification helps readers emotionally connect the bonsai tree with human life, especially women's lives. Marge Piercy uses poetic devices like extended metaphors, symbolism, imagery, irony, personification to show how society limits women's natural growth while making that limitation look beautiful and acceptable. These devices make the poem simple to read but very powerful in meaning.